Good morning, everybody. Selene here. I'm going to share blends with you. I was away camping this weekend. I'm just going to share this over on the creative group and then we can get started. I want to try and make sure I can see your comments. Oops. So let me just grab this real quick and then we will be off to the races. Let's see. There you go. Technology never works when you're trying to go, hi honey, my husband's on. All right, let's see. Okay, so that's all shared over, I think. It helps when you press post, but I did click the enter button. Okay, so blends. These are alcohol-based markers, and they're really, sometimes I've had a couple of downline that told me they're really tricky to use, but I have a lot of fun with them. When you purchase them, they come in sets by color, and you get a dark one and a light one. Well, the magic is actually this guy, and this is a color lifter. This is what gives you the magic. It's a highlighter. It's not really an eraser, although if you make a mistake, you can kind of use it a little bit to fix any of the mistakes. You can color non-porous items, so I got a tile, but it's way over there, so think like tile. Embellishments, you can color any of your pearls or your rhinestones, or I was playing with some of the new embellishments that have a ship wheel and an anchor, and I colored them so that they were a different metallic. And that would be like soft suede, so that you can get the same color. Good morning, Mary and Sharon and Debbie. It's so good to see everybody. Okay, so I am gonna pop right over and just get to stamping. Okay, so let's jump over. Just hang on one second. Rotate your phone. Is that it? They're like, you can't turn your phone while recording. Well, dude, I rotated it, but it rotated the wrong way. Hang on, I'm sorry. Ha! That's really funny. Okay, so now you really see my whole table. Let me get rid of this so I don't launch it off the table. I'm good like that. All right, so I was playing with my blends and I made this morning. And this is from the new Magnolia stamp set. But I wanted to start with something old. So let's see here. We've got the Graceful Glass Designer Vellum. So you can color on vellum at any time. But the cool thing with this vellum is it comes pre-printed, and there's two sides. There's a shiny side that's almost like heat embossed before you start. And then I like to color when I color with these on the back. So this designer paper comes 6 by 6, and you can cut it down. And this design happens to be 6 by 3. So I started this morning by flipping it over. And I brought in some nice bright colors. Summer's here, the official start of summer. Yay, for Memorial Day. Thank you to all of our veterans, by the way, who do so much for us and keep us safe. So all I'm doing is I am coloring the back of this designer vellum. So what's really cool is if I accidentally touch that black line, it's not a big deal because it's not going to go outside the lines. By me coloring the back, the front is still shiny and it does come out a little bit more muted, but it definitely takes the color well, and it makes it super easy to finish your project. So let's just pretend here for a minute, because this is TV. sort of. That. We've colored all of these things. And I'm going to color out to here. And then these, I'm going to color just one little swipe on each one. And then the smaller window, I'm going to color with the light ones all the way around, right? And then this guy is the dark Bermuda Bay. I had to read it because I already forgot. And this one only needs a dot in the center of each. Okay. So this is the first thing that I love to do with blends. And this paper, I'm so bummed that it's going out. It's the Graceful Glass Designer Series paper. So then when you put it right up against the white, it really pops. Ready? So you can see. So what I did this morning was I stamped a thank you. And we'll just bring that in real quick. This is also from that new Magnolia stamp set. I'm sorry you guys can't get it for another week unless you sign up to be a demonstrator, or if you're a demonstrator you can get it on pre-order. But it's only a week. And then I took this and trimmed it. Trimming is much easier when you put scissors on the table. Oh, they're way over there. That's why. Okay, so I trimmed this, and I started to trim it this way, and then I realized the font was going this way. The design was going this way. So I'm going to trim this off to the side. Then I took my blends marker, and see how I'm face up? You don't want to do this face down, because if you do, you potentially can write on your project. You just want to take this and go face up and do a quick swipe. So that's one thing about the blends markers that's really cool. But it's also kind of scary because when you are using blends, the blends markers can kind of bleed through. So what do I mean by that? So I have a lot of people that have complained in the past that when they're coloring with their blends, their color bleeds outside the lines, and that's because with an alcohol-based marker, this bad boy is rolling right out of the marker, so that they're like, this is the thin end, so they're really super inky, and the longer you leave it there, the more it's going to expand out. So working quickly is kind of important. And look at the back, so you can see right through on those. So I usually have something when I'm coloring underneath with them. But with this Vellum project, I'll just bring in what the final piece looks like. I took this 3x6 and I matted it with a 1/4 inch larger piece, so 6 1/4 by 3 1/4, and then I made a card base. So we'll just pull in what I did here. And all I did was color right on a pearl to finish off this project. So that's one way to use blends, and that's something that's going out. And I just wanted to share that with you. So let's see what we've got over here. This is my Stamparatus, and I have the Magnolia stamp set up on my Stamparatus already for a project that we're doing tonight at Stamp Club. This is my Stamp Club week. And I have 42 members right now. It's 40 members, but I have a waiting list. There are 2 people waiting for a spot. I just want to kind of peek and make sure that I'm on the paper here. So this is set up for a different card. That's why I'm kind of off-roading here. When you work with blends, the ink pad that you want to go with the blends is Memento. Memento is a fade-resistant dye-based ink. So if you were to try to, for example, stamp with StazOn, StazOn would actually move because both of these markers are alcohol-based. If you ever watched the commercial on TV with protein takes out protein, well, alcohol takes off alcohol. So you don't want to mix 2 alcohol solvent-based inks. That's why we use the dye-based ink on the base of our cards. So I'm going to ink this up on my Stamparatus. And this is just so that tonight when my Stamp Club members get here that they don't need to think about where this thing goes, because it's just a background stamp for a project we're making. Hey, Melissa. Good morning, Rita. Hi, Jerry. Oh my goodness, it's good to see everybody. Okay, so this is my stamped image, and it's awfully pretty, but I was having trouble with the last one, so I want to like get the middle again. So that's kind of one cool thing about the Stamparatus. As long as you don't move it, you can stamp again and again, and it will just make your image. Like if I want to go even a little darker in the center, because I think it will be pretty if I do. Make sure that the paper doesn't move. I have one of the grid papers on here. Okay, so that's where I want to start with my blends image. And when I'm working with the Stamparatus, I have another kind of cleaner on here, this chamois, and I keep it in a clear mount case through tonight, and it's wet, and so people can clean off their stamps really easy, because it'll be easy on the table, you know, and then I can rinse them. Hey, Lady Di, thanks for all your help last night. Diane is my helper. I don't know what helper isn't really the right word. I don't know what I would do without her. Okay, so now that that's all clean, I'm going to put this away, and I'm going to bring this in, and we'll talk about blends. So there are a couple of different ways to do blends, but whatever way you're going to use, I would say you should do it in small sections. You got to work kind of quick because it's alcohol. It dries fast. So I'm going to start with a leaf and add a little bit of the light color. There's two ways to do this. I'm going to show one way on this leaf, and then I'll show, well, I guess there's multiple ways to use it, but this is my method. And by the way, I'm sure that there are people that are better at this than I am, but this is my way. So I'm going to take, while the blends are wet and on the paper, I'm going to add some dark highlights, or dark lowlights, so to speak. And now you're going to see my lines, because they're very kind of rough and raw, which is what I wanted. But what I did was I added the darker Mossy Meadow to the areas that were still wet from the light marker, and now I'm going through right through the dark again and blending it out with the light marker. So that means that there's no lines, and it looks pretty sharp, pretty watercolored, pretty cool. Okay, so while that's doing that thing, I'm going to take my color lifter. And of course, I'm going to cut this out, so I'm going to use this also as a scrap paper. And look, see, my color bled into my flower a little, so I'm going to get rid of some of the green off of that. This, again, is just scrap. And then I'm going to go into that flower and fix it with my lifter. So it's not an eraser, and you're not going to fix it. And it does have a big wet mark right there, but you kind of got to let it dry in between lifting. So I am lifting out the center of the leaves here to add this highlight in the middle. Okay. Diane fixes me. She's more than a helper. Okay, so let's see. She helped me prep some of my quarterly projects last night. And Diane, if you're still here, I actually designed 3 more. The quarterly catalog kickoff for demonstrators starts earlier in the morning. And then for everybody is welcome to make 16 projects with us in the afternoon. So it's going to be a fun day. It's Saturday, June 15th. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm adding some subtle color with my dark blend. that I'm not planning to blend out because I'm not adding enough color to make it, I don't want any lines. Okay, and then I do have a little bit of like outside the line thing going on here. I don't know where that came from, but it does happen. So you can use this color lifter, and now you see it starting to fix itself. So what you do is, as you lift, you do it in stages, and once that's dry, I'll take a look at it again and see if it needs to be lifted again. Okay, so I wanted to do very similar to the Magnolia paper, and here, let me give you a sneak peek. This is one of the cards for the quarterly, and I really like the way the artist blended the bloom on this paper. So this would have been stamped in the Mossy Meadow and then blended on top. So with that, I only could find my dark petal pink. So there is a lighter version, which means you would get more dark to light contrast when you're coloring. But what we're going to do is we're going to start by taking just the center of the flower and making some like lines that are kind of we're going to make intentional lines. But so then there'll be like this line on our blend. Now normally, oh, that's a leaf. Huh, that's okay, because that's a dark color, so I can fix that after. But here we go. So I'm going to make that dark in the middle. I'm going to color some of these magnolia leaves, flower leaves. Here we go. And then I'm going to stop. So what this lifter also does is it's going to take this stark line from my color, and I want to make sure that there's no green on there, so I'm going to get rid of that. And then I'm going to soften up those lines with the lifter. I'm not going to like go too crazy, but I want to see how the lines start to lift where that. So if you look at the artists, it almost looks airbrushed. I want that look in my blend, so I'm going to use the color lifter on the edge of that magnolia color, and I didn't carry the color through to the rest of the flower. Okay, so that was two ways to use blends, right? The third way would be, oh, and see, look, that bugger is still bleeding, but that's okay, because we're going to go back in with this guy again and lift, 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 and like it'll leave a big wet mark, and then you just kind of wait for it to do its thing, and then you decide if it needs more lifting. Like right there, it bled just a little bit, but that's okay. It's going to look great when we're done. Okay, so let's color that leaf that I messed up on. So another way to do this is to add the dark marks first. So you can color the whole image in the light one, or you can add the dark mark first and then go right through the dark to color the light. So that was the dark one, and here's the light, and I'm going to go right into that dark Mossy Meadow. And again, I'm not going to hang out on the corners too long because it does bleed if you're not careful. So you just got to kind of move along and not hold the marker there too much. And blend, 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 blend. So this gives you more stark lines because I didn't start with a wet surface. But while it's wet, I'm going to add some more dark like I did on the other flower and get a similar effect. And then, so this will keep your lighter more light because you're only going over the light once. And then I can go back in with that lifter again. And this tip is destroyed because we had it in a stamp club and everybody used it. So it might be time for another lifter for me, but it's still very saturated and working well. So it's just the tip is kind of bent. So when you buy, these are kind of like beginner alcohol-based markers. They're only $4.50. The ones on the market are so expensive that you'd want refills for them. These, once my tip is dead, I want a new marker anyway, and they're $4.50, and they're I like having the new nib. Okay, up and look, see, it went over there a little bit, but that's okay because I got my lifter. And I'll just continue to work on this, and when it's done, yeah, okay, so Sharon's saying that it's more like a color pusher, but I use it to add highlights to my project. So if you look at the way that my leaves came out, there's like a very pretty high level mossy meadow in there that I wouldn't have gotten from the 2 straight markers had I not lifted the center. So where the light's gonna show up is where I use the lifter. So I use it like to lift here and here, and then I'm gonna get rid of my green. And I'm also using it to lift the color on my Magnolia to get an airbrushed look where there's going from my dark petal pink to no color at all. I want to blend that line out and lift just the line. So if you notice, the stark line that I made in the beginning, Sharon, it disappeared. So now there's no line there, and it just looks like the flower itself, which I think is awfully pretty. So what I did with this was I finished coloring the flower, and I used crumb cake for the branch, and just the 2 colors, the mossy meadow and well, the 2 mossy meadows and the 1 petal pink, and then I cut it out. So that's what my finished piece looked like this morning. So I was actually thinking of another way that you can use blends, and so let me just show you. Hang on. This is a non-porous tile, so geez, I forget what they call them. I'll have to post it later, but I've had these on the shelf forever, and it's a great gift. It's a quick gift, but remember I told you that stays on and blends are the same kind of ink. They really are. So but if I want it to stay on the tile, I need to have something like stays on for it to show up. So there's my tile base. And then oh, he needs like a different color for his beak, huh? I'm just grabbing some colors, don't mind me. Calypso Coral, I think. I was like, I don't want a bird with a pink beak. That's kind of weird. Okay, so now here's the thing with this. You can color on the tile, but if you go through the black, you're gonna move it. So this is dark Calypso Coral blends, and this is the Bird Ballad stamp set. Okay, so now I'm gonna take this, and I know that I'm gonna have a little bit of, this is the dark Bermuda Bay, but I just have to be really careful around the stays on that I don't go through it too much, because one will take the other off. But I do want my bird to be blue. Isn't he cute? Okay, so that's the dark Bermuda. Oh no, that was the light Bermuda Bay. Duh. Let me do the dark one first. Sorry. I wanted the dark because the light one will accent it. Now, the other thing is if you're coloring away and the lines do disappear, know that it's going to come out really artistic, almost like a no-line watercolor. It'll be really pretty, so don't get too nervous if things aren't perfect right out of the gate. You never know what kind of mistakes will turn into something super pretty. Okay, so I'm going to show you a closer view of this. Ready? I know it's upside down. That's how I color. Okay, so that stays on and then blends on top. So you just have to be super careful not to completely rub off the stays on. Like, try to avoid the lines if you can while you're coloring. And I don't want to color the whole head, so I'm just gonna stop there for a second. And I don't know, let's experiment. I want to see if the lifter will blend that line. And bam, what do you know, it does. So there's my lifter, and it's lifting that line to make it super soft. So now I've got like, oh my God, how pretty is that? Whoop, whoop. Okay, let me just double check that this is the light one. So while that's wet, I'm gonna go back in with the light one again. Oh, I could do this all day. That's fun. So you could even take it almost up to the line and know that you can blend it out. How fun. So there's a close-up look. Isn't that pretty? I love it. So this little bugger is the thing that does the most for me. Like, I can use it to add, so I'm cleaning it off on my scrap paper here because we said that I'm going to cut this image out just like I did with this one. Make sure that you clean off in between, because if I take this and go into the pink, my flower could show up a little bit blue, and then I'd have to lift and see if I could get that off. But wicked fun. I'm really happy with that. And so I could seal it, but as long as someone doesn't clean it with like hand sanitizer or an alcohol-based item, this would actually stay pretty good on its own without a sealer. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks for joining me. I hope that you had a fun time at the Blends 101. This is just kind of like sharing the possibilities. And I will talk to you soon. Bye, guys.